The first time the door closed in her face, Amina told herself it was just bad timing. The second time, she told herself it was the wrong place. By the fifth rejection in a single week, she stopped pretending it was coincidence. It was the way her shoes were worn thin at the heels, the way her resume was printed on slightly faded paper, the way her hands trembled when she reached for the door handle, like she already knew what was coming. People didn't need to ask how much money she had. They could see it. Amina was 26 and carried her life in a frayed backpack. Inside were copies of her resume, a notebook filled with ideas written in careful handwriting, and a small photo of her mother, smiling despite the hospital bed behind her. Her mother had died 2 years earlier, leaving behind medical bills, a rented room they could no longer afford, and one stubborn piece of advice: never let them convince you that your circumstances are your worth. But it was hard not to feel convinced when every interview ended the same way. Polite smiles. Vague promises. We'll call you. Calls that never came. She had graduated at the top of her class in business administration, working nights at a roadside cafe to pay tuition. While others networked at expensive events, she wiped tables and memorized textbooks during her breaks. She knew how to solve problems, how to lead, how to think strategically, but none of that seemed to matter when people saw poverty before potential. That morning, she stood outside a glass building downtown, staring at her reflection. The building belonged to Alton & Pierce Holdings, one of the largest companies in the city. She hadn't applied there. She knew better than to dream that big. But the cafe where she worked had closed suddenly the night before, and the job board inside the bus station listed an open, administrative assistant, immediate interviews. She adjusted her blazer, one she'd bought from a thrift store, and tailored herself late one night, and walked in. The receptionist barely looked up. Her eyes flicked from Amina's face to her shoes and back again. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," Amina said softly. "But I saw the listing. I'm ready to interview today." The receptionist sighed, already bored. "Our isn't taking walk-ins." Amina nodded, swallowed, and turned away. She was halfway to the door when a voice cut through the lobby. "Wait." The voice was calm, steady, and carried authority without effort. Amina turned to see a tall man in his early 40s, wearing a simple dark suit. No flashy watch. No loud confidence. Just presence. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amina Khan," she replied, surprised her voice didn't crack. "I'm Daniel Royce," he said. "And why are you leaving?" She hesitated, then decided she had nothing left to lose. "Because I don't have an appointment. And because I've been rejected everywhere else." Daniel studied her for a moment, not her clothes, not her shoes, but her eyes. "Come with me," he said. The receptionist opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Everyone knew Daniel Royce. He was the CEO. They sat in a small conference room overlooking the city. Daniel didn't ask for her resume right away. He asked her to tell her story. So she did. She told him about her mother. About working 3 jobs. About sleeping in a shared room with strangers and skipping meals to afford bus fare. She told him about her ideas, how she believed companies failed not because of lack of money, but because they forgot the people they were meant to serve. When she finished, she expected the familiar polite smile. Instead, Daniel leaned back, thoughtful. "You know," he said, "when I started this company, I was sleeping in my car." Amina blinked. "No one wanted to invest in me," he continued. "They said I didn't look like a CEO. Didn't sound like one. Didn't come from the right background." He smiled faintly. "Turns out, success doesn't care where you come from." He finally took her resume and scanned it quickly. His eyebrows lifted. "Top of your class. Why aren't you working somewhere already?" "Because," Amina said quietly, "people don't hire resumes. They hire comfort." Daniel laughed softly. "That might be the smartest thing I've heard all week." He stood. "You start today." Amina froze. "As the assistant?" "No," he said. "As a junior strategy analyst. You'll report directly to me." She thought she'd misheard. "Sir, I didn't even apply for." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm offering it." The first few weeks were harder than anything Amina had known. Some coworkers whispered. Others avoided her. A few made comments they thought she wouldn't hear. She only got the job because he felt sorry for her. Must be nice, skipping the line. She worked longer hours than anyone else, not to prove them wrong, but because she finally had a chance, and she refused to waste it. She arrived early, left late, and absorbed everything. When Daniel asked questions in meetings, she answered with clarity. When projects stalled, she offered solutions no one else had considered. 3 months in, a major client threatened to pull out due to declining customer trust. The board panicked. Millions were at stake. Daniel called Amina into his office. "I want your honest opinion," he said. She took a deep breath. "You're focusing on profits while ignoring perception. People don't feel seen by this brand anymore. Fix that, and the numbers will follow." The room went silent. The board members exchanged looks. One scoffed. "And how would you suggest we do that?" Amina didn't flinch. She laid out a plan: community engagement, transparent pricing, real customer feedback loops. It was bold, risky, human. Daniel approved it. 6 months later, the client renewed their contract, bigger than before. The media praised the company's shift toward empathy-driven leadership. Profits rose. Morale improved. Amina was promoted. Then another. Within 2 years, she became director of strategy. The same companies that had rejected her began calling, offering salaries and titles that once seemed impossible. She declined them all. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Daniel found her standing by the window. "They see you now," he said. She smiled. "They always could have." He nodded. "What do you want next?" Amina thought of the girls she'd met in shelters. The students working nights like she once had. The talent buried under poverty and prejudice. "I want to build a program," she said. "Paid internships for people who never get a chance. People like me." Daniel extended his hand. "Let's do it." Years later, Amina stood on a stage, addressing a room full of young faces, nervous, hopeful, uncertain. "I was rejected everywhere for being poor," she told them. "Not because I lacked value, but because people couldn't see past my circumstances." Don't let that define you. The right door doesn't just open, it recognizes you. In the audience, Daniel watched quietly, pride in his eyes. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person who looks beyond poverty and sees worth, and a life changes forever.